Hey, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I feel a little bit weird about recording this video because I'm going to be talking about chronic fatigue syndrome / mental health. The reason I feel a little bit weird talking about it here is because so far I've only done stupid things to my appearance, which could class as being funny, and this probably isn't going to be a funny video at all. So I just feel like no one's going to click on it when they see the title, but I shouldn't be bothered about that because I should be happy if just one person clicks on this and gets something out of it. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be talking about my experience with chronic fatigue syndrome. I'll dip a little bit into mental health because it all does sort of roll into one. With me it does anyway. So yeah, if you're still here after I've announced what this is about, then thanks. Thank you. Thank you. So, I got diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome in January 2019. It's now September 2020, for anyone watching this in the future. Before getting diagnosed, I think that I did suffer with it for a few years, but it was hard to differentiate between fatigue and physical symptoms relating to anxiety and depression and actual chronic fatigue syndrome, because it does all overlap, and of course anxiety and depression does make you exhausted and can cause physical pain, especially in your joints and your chest. So yeah, it took me a while to be certain that I had it. Also, the diagnosing to get diagnosed, it isn't straightforward. There isn't a test that you can take. It's basically a process of elimination. So if you think that you have chronic fatigue syndrome, oh no, I'm going off track. Okay, scrap that. Yeah, so as a bit of a backstory, I first started going to the doctors to get help for anxiety and depression in June 2016. I was really exhausted then. I did have to take a lot of time off work to get my mental health sort of back together. Since then I was taking antidepressants, and in about 2017 I started to think that maybe I had chronic fatigue syndrome, because it was getting to the point where I couldn't get through a full week at work. It would get to Thursday and Friday and I wouldn't have the energy to go anymore, and if I did push myself to go, I would eventually, say if I pushed myself to go for 4 full weeks, I would end up having to get signed off for a few weeks. So my body just couldn't take it. But because my mental health wasn't well managed, every time I did go to the doctors and I sort of mentioned chronic fatigue syndrome, because that wasn't the reason that I was there, they sort of wrote down and explained tiredness in my records, but we never actually pursued it any further until 2018. So it was getting to the point where I really couldn't do my job anymore. I had zero life outside of work. I couldn't even walk to the bus stop after work. I couldn't cook my own dinner. All I'd do in the evenings after work is bring the quilt downstairs and just lay on the sofa until it was bedtime, and then I'd take the duvet up to bed and go to bed. I wouldn't be able to do anything at the weekend, anything after work. I had to give up all of my hobbies, and it got to the point where my life was pretty miserable. I know people do have it a lot worse than me, and there are worser conditions, but my life did change drastically, and that's when I thought, right, maybe I was pretty certain that I had it, but a diagnosis is more so validation, and also it gives you confidence to know what you actually have, because then if you know what the issue is, you can try and fix it, or at least make it a bit easier. So in the summer of 2018, I finally went to the doctors with an appointment to specifically talk about chronic fatigue syndrome. And the diagnosing process did take about 6 months, because you basically have to have, first, before they will test you for it, you have to have at least 6 months of unexplained tiredness. So they'd need to know that you have been feeling that way for 6 months or longer. So they looked through my records and it was already there, because every time I was there for a medication review, I did pretty much always mention how exhausted I was feeling. And then it will start with blood tests, but it's like an extensive amount of blood tests. So they test for everything. So they test for diabetes, they test for any deficiencies, especially iron deficiencies, and just to check that there isn't anything else going on. I think that's your urine sample as well. So they check for everything. And everything with me came back normal, because the amount of times someone told me that I just needed to take B12 or iron is absolutely beyond me. So much, so much. Yeah, so all of that came back normal. So they knew there wasn't another underlying health condition that they needed to be treating me for. So then, if all of that comes back normal, they then refer you to a specialist, a chronic fatigue specialist. So the waiting list is quite large. I did have to wait, I would probably say 5 months, because by the time I got all of my blood tests back, it was probably around about August, and then I ended up seeing the lady in January 2019. You basically go to a chronic fatigue specialist. I think the appointment was like 90 minutes long. You talk from the beginning of when you started feeling unwell to today. After talking to me in length about everything, she confirmed she thinks I do definitely have chronic fatigue syndrome. But yeah, mine fluctuates from mild to moderate. Some days I will have a little sprinkle of severe. I'll put a little put something here. I can learn how to do that quick. I'll put something here that explains mild, moderate and severe, and then maybe I will put a little bit of an explanation of what chronic fatigue is, because I'm rubbish at explaining things. That's my story of getting diagnosed. It's actually the next day, because ironically, talking about chronic fatigue syndrome was very exhausting for me, and I don't have any contact lenses in, and I have the little light there, so I'm gonna have to take my glasses off and I'm just gonna be blind. But yes, after reviewing yesterday's footage, I wanted to basically pick up from where I left off. So after I got diagnosed, it was very useful for me, because you can then research more about the condition. I would recommend seeing a chronic fatigue specialist if you can. They work alongside the NHS. I'm not too sure what it's like throughout the UK, and I'm not too sure what it's like in other countries, but she was incredible. I saw her around about every 6 to 8 weeks for the first 18 months of my diagnosis, so I've only just stopped seeing her, and although I'm not cured, because there isn't a cure, I'm significantly better than I was when I first met her, and we did both mutually decide that we gotten to the point where there wasn't anything that she could teach me or help me with, and yeah, we both mutually decided a couple of months ago that was it then, because there's a lot more people on the very lengthy waiting lists that need her help more than I do now, so yes. But there was a few things that she helped me realise, which in turn enhanced my quality of life massively. So she taught me about pacing and the boom and bust. And the boom and bust is essentially when you will have a spurt of energy after, say, resting for the weekend. So you will do everything that you possibly can because you don't know how long that energy is going to last for, and then you crash and it's not good and it's not sustainable. And that's basically what I'd been doing for a couple of years. I'd be resting, you know, like on Saturday and Sunday. On Monday I'd feel like I was on top of the world, so I'd be running around like a headless chicken. On Tuesday I would start to feel good, and I'd notice that I'd crash by Tuesday lunchtime and I'd start to feel a bit sluggish. And then Wednesday, Thursday, really difficult. Friday, practically impossible. Saturday, practically impossible. Sunday, Sunday evening, I'd start to feel good again, and it would just go round in circles. So she taught me to pace, which is essentially trying to preserve your energy levels. So don't do too much on your good days, and your good days and good hours and good weeks should last longer. So good days, bad days, good bad days. It's basically preserving your energy. So which could mean, oh god, am I really gonna have to do this again on another day? Why is it so much easier to just do stupid things to my face? Yeah, she helped me understand my limits and what was making me crash. So I started my first couple of appointments, we'd go through a diary that I'd kept. So we'd basically write what I'd done that day or that hour. I think it was every hour actually. So write what I'd done that hour, and then write how I was feeling that hour, and we then noticed what was causing me to flare up. So from studying that with her, I noticed that I was doing far too much at the beginning of the week, which meant I wasn't able to do anything at all at the end of the week. So from that point onwards, I have paced out, I've sort of paced out my energy, no, my activities. Oh god, I'm gonna have to come back and do it again. It's ridiculous. Space out my activities, which would then preserve my energy levels. Oh, for God's sake. Right, see you tomorrow. Hi. Day 3 of trying to film this video. I am trying to do it in the middle of the week, so in my evenings after work, and I do get really tired in the evenings, and it's alright if I'm just doing a hair dye video, but if I'm actually trying to concentrate on something, it can be really exhausting for me, and it can be really difficult to make sense. So yeah, this is day 3 of trying to do a simple video, but life goes on. I don't think there's much else for me to cover. because I have painfully watched back my other 2 clips, and I've sort of covered my journey of getting diagnosed and also what it was like immediately after I got diagnosed. So that's good. I just wanted to sum up what the chronic fatigue specialist helped me with. So I did just briefly and very long-windedly talk about pacing and the boom and bust, and that was a really important lesson for me. It does mean that everything does have to be more thought through, and for someone that used to be really spontaneous and hyperactive and energetic all the time, it was really hard for me to not act in cohesion with my energy levels. So if you do have a lot of energy one day, you do just have to sort of be a little bit more considerate about your energy levels and what's going to flare you up and what isn't. But it was a really important lesson for me, and if I didn't learn that lesson, then I don't think I would have got better at all. So that was really important for me. And another one was actually doing the timetable and learning my limits. It does unfortunately mean that when you look at it on paper and you realise what is causing you to be poorly, you might have to say goodbye to some things that you really enjoy. But if it enhances your life, then you kind of just have to do that. So I had to leave my job. I was a visual merchandiser, and I did have to leave my job because as soon as I got the diagnosis, I had the confidence to say, I have this condition and I'm not well enough to do this job anymore. So I left and I got an office job, which I really enjoy, and because I have the office job, I do have the energy to do something else out of work sometimes, and most of the time I'm well enough to make it through a working week. So yeah, you've got to notice what makes you unwell, and unfortunately you have to say goodbye to them. I used to do a lot of yoga and a lot of dance. I used to go to the gym and I used to love running, but I can't do that anymore. Prior to getting diagnosed, a lot of people told me to exercise because it releases endorphins and it gives you more energy. But when I finally met my chronic fatigue specialist, she was like, yeah, don't do that. That will make you 10 times worse. So I did have to say goodbye to all of my hobbies. All of my hobbies were physical, but I gained new hobbies, ones that I can do from bed. Like I did a bit of studying, got myself a counselling qualification. I learned how to crochet. I got into reading, but when I say I got into reading, I've been reading the same book since the beginning of lockdown, and it's now September. I read about 4 pages every week. But you know, it's something. But yeah, if you think that you do have chronic fatigue and you have been thinking about going to the doctors about it, but you're scared because you don't want to face the reality of having a chronic illness, please just do it. As soon as you know that you do have a chronic illness and you do have chronic fatigue syndrome, you can get the right support and you can finally gain the confidence to start adjusting your life according to your capabilities, and your life will get easier. It'll get easier. It won't be easy because you still have a chronic illness and a disability, but it will help. So yeah, that's basically my story. If you do have any other questions, yeah, just let me know. And if you don't have chronic fatigue and you don't think you have chronic fatigue but you've still watched this video, then thank you so much, because unfortunately people don't tend to know what chronic fatigue is until they get diagnosed with chronic fatigue, and that can be really scary. So thanks for learning about something. You never know, even if you don't ever get chronic fatigue syndrome, you may have someone close to you that one day will have chronic fatigue syndrome, and you will be able to help them, and you will be able to understand, because unfortunately a lot of people do think that a chronic illness or an invisible illness is just in someone's head, and it's not. It's not. So yeah, thanks for watching, and see you again sometime. Hopefully I don't have to come back and do this for a 4th day, but after reviewing this, we will see.